Today we're going to talk about feelings, and I think that some of you maybe stayed home because you thought you already learned about that in kindergarten. And it's really funny how we go into thinking we don't need to do those anymore. We don't need to say them anymore. No one's asking us how we feel unless we pay a therapist. And today what we're going to learn about is that, one, there's scientific evidence as to why using far more words about feelings than we are normally limited to actually makes the quality of our life better. It actually helps us have less conflict. It actually helps us solve more problems. It's a wild thing, and it's not that hard. Like so many good solutions can be simple, right? And I had a really great conversation. Is George Motto here? There he is. Last week I had this conversation with George. George, I'm going to pick on you, and I didn't clear this ahead, but I think you can take it. And George said something to the effect of, well, I think I should be able to say whatever I think and believe whenever I think it. And we should just all be able to say what we believe. And I said, George, that sounds really good. But I haven't noticed that many people who make grand statements about things open it up by saying, what I think is, and this is what I believe, and what do you believe, right? Instead they say, most people say, gravity is stupid, and if you think that gravity is a good idea, you're really a fool, and all those people that think that gravity is a good idea, I'm not going to talk to them anymore, right? As opposed to saying, I really believe in gravity, and I think that I feel scared when I meet someone that doesn't believe in gravity. In fact, I get worried for the state of our world when I hear about people who don't believe in gravity. What do you think? What do you feel about that? It's more invitational to talk about your feelings, and then we can address feelings. But the person who's going off and making a grand statement, there's no room for invitation there. There's no room to really talk about it. And so we're going to go over today why using your feelings is welcoming, why it's helpful at every family reunion and gathering and work meeting you'll go to, if you can get everyone to use their feelings. So I want you to take your free gift that you got with today's service, your feelings wheel, get them laminated, make some copies for everyone, and it will help us go through our interim year, and it will help you in your lives. And so I just want to say welcome to all of you, and welcome to all of your feelings today.
Good morning. Good morning. I'm Elizabeth Vesto, she, her, and I'm a member of your worship council. Our chalice lighting is inspired by a Toshi Regan lyric. We light this chalice in the name of love. We need more real love. Gritty. You guys can repeat. Gritty. Gritty. Dangerous. Dangerous. Wild-eyed. Wild-eyed. Justice seeking. Justice seeking. Love. Love. Thank you.
I'm Allison Vernon, Director of Music here at Countryside, pronouns she, her, and I'd like to welcome you to our new theme this month of courage, because it takes a lot of courage to acknowledge our feelings. Please join us in the singing of the first hymn, number 1012, When I Am Frightened.
We are a congregation united in covenant, not creed. We pledge our covenant to one another each week. Please stay risen in body or spirit and join me in sharing our covenant. We unite to strengthen the bonds of kinship among all persons, to promote human dignity, and to increase reverence for life's creating, sustaining, and transforming power through worship, study, and service.
Good morning. I am Mary Sheldon, and the pronouns to use for me are she and her, and I am your Director of Lifespan Religious Exploration. And the title of our story today is What Feelings Do When No One Is Looking, by Tina Ojewicz and Alexandra Zajac. And you may find that your feelings wheel is useful to you as we go through our story today as a sort of roadmap. Curiosity always climbs as high as possible to the treetop, the roof, or the chimney. Joy bounces on a trampoline. Gratitude warms. Calm pets a dog. Envy tramples all that is beautiful. No time to rest. So many beautiful things to ruin. Insecurities build cages. Freedom sails. Hospitality bakes a cake. Compassion helps snails cross sidewalks. Shame digs little holes and burrows inside them like a mole. Pride stands tall in a tower at the summit of a crystal mountain. Patience keeps a lovely garden. Trust builds bridges. Anxiety juggles. Kindness quiets the storm. Fear pretends it isn't there. Bliss sits in a quiet chair with tea in its paws. Hope makes a sandwich for the road. Hate chews through links and cables. Can't connect. Love is an electrician. Where does all of this live? In us. I'm lacking my lantern, and yet still, the young people may follow me now to their religious exploration sessions.
In a story told by Brene Brown in her book, Atlas of the Heart, she shares, I also had a really awful piano teacher who would shame and humiliate students. Because of my secret powers, I was never victimized by the teacher, but that wasn't enough. I could barely tolerate watching it happen to others, so I did my best to set the class up for success. One day, as I was showing my friend the scale we were working on, we both started giggling about something, probably how terrible I was at piano. The instructor went nuts and screamed, "Why are you laughing?" We didn't move a muscle. Finally, she said, "One of you is going to the principal's office. Who's it gonna be?" It only took me a couple of seconds to work out that my parents would be okay with my getting in trouble. But this girl had an older brother who was constantly in trouble. I had even seen her mom at the school crying and picking him up from the principal's office. So I shot straight up, me. She told me to sit back down and set her sights on the girl sitting next to me, who was trembling. I looked at her and said, "No, I will not sit down." It was me. She lost her mind. But I was never afraid. I marched down to the office, gave the principal's assistant my home phone number, and refused to talk to anyone until my parents arrived. I told my parents that I had to stand up for someone who was getting picked on and who was afraid. My dad had me moved out a piano, and we stopped for ice cream on the way home. He was proud of me for standing up to a bully. I was proud of myself for accurately predicting how everything would work out. But it wasn't a warm and fuzzy moment for me. The irony was too obvious. Maybe I couldn't actually predict the future, but I did have top-level observation powers. I understood that people would do almost anything to not feel pain, including causing pain and abusing power. And I understood that there were very few people who could handle being held accountable for causing hurt without rationalizing, blaming, or shutting down. What surprised me the most when I was growing up was how little other people seemed to understand or even think about the connection between feelings, thinking, and behavior. I remember often thinking, "Oh God, do you not see this coming?" I didn't feel smarter or better, just weirder and pained by the amount of hurt that we are capable of causing one another. The observation powers were partly survival and partly how I'm wired. Everyone, including me, seemed so desperate to feel more connected to their own lives and to one another, but no one was looking in the right places. No one was thinking about how it all works together. Everyone seemed disembodied from their own inner world and disconnected from other people. Too many lonely and secret lives.
I want to thank Elizabeth for bringing me a singing bowl today. There's a lot of things that were used in different services that we kind of thought were a part of the church that belonged to Reverend Hillary and went with her when she left. And one was the singing bowls. Today we're going to have a meditation, and I'm going to name different feelings. And after I name it and talk about it, I will ring the bowl, and that'll be time for you to pause and fill in your own contemplation. And then I will read another and pause and ring the bowl. And when we are done, I will ring the bowl a fourth and final time so that you know what's coming. So, disappointment. And you can follow along on your feelings wheels if that helps, but you don't have to. Whatever works for you. Disappointment is an unmet expectation. The more significant the expectations, the more significant the disappointment. Comparison. Comparison is the crush of conformity from one side and competition from the other. It's trying simultaneously to fit in and stand out. Comparison says, be like everyone else but better. Anger. Anger is an emotion we feel when something gets in the way of a desired outcome, or when we believe there's a violation of the way things should be. When we feel anger, we believe that someone or something else is to blame and unfair or unjust, and that something can be done to resolve the problem. Anger is an action emotion. We want to do something when we feel it and when we're on the receiving end of it. Anger. Tapping out. The greatest threat to you owning your story and your stuff and building trust is tapping out. Think of the narrator in your head talking. Rather than building trust by acknowledging, affirming, and believing, we shut people down when we experience discomfort or disinterest, or when we take over the narrative and make it about us and our perception of what happened. There is nothing more limiting out of tension and oversimplifying the thoughts and feelings that we have. That we have the power to help us. Those thoughts and feelings can explain things. They can help us understand who we are and what we need. Tapping out. I got a question this week about what this means. Gus, right? Gus, one of our youth, asked, why do people pump their fist at church? This is the sign for yes in sign language. And you may know that already. And some people feel, and in our youth movement, they call it knocking in agreement, right? It comes out of Unitarian Universalist youth doing that. And some people appreciate it because it doesn't interrupt their chain of thought, or it stays silent like good Protestants from New England, appreciate. And I believe that preaching is an exchange between all of us, right? If it was just someone reading something or giving a lecture, it's entirely different. In fact, I was an accomplished public speaker before I became a minister, and boy, was it a lot of work to learn how different it is to preach than to give a speech. So for me, y'all can clap, y'all can whoop, you can knock. Let the Spirit move you, because it's an exchange between us. Last year, I was at the doctor for what I had previously been diagnosed 2 days before, as a sinus infection. But I was back at the doctor on a Thursday because it was much worse. And the nurse was interviewing me and asked how I was, and I responded, fine. I thought, no, you are not fine. Miserable and much worse than Tuesday, I corrected myself. Why is the pressure so much to be fine that we automatically go to trite words of being fine, okay, or good. I have been trying to teach people to lead discussions with feelings words, and I know how hard it is to do. Now, I have long been one of those people, like what Brene Brown was talking about in that reading, who could kind of read a room and sense things. And in my capacity as a minister, I've been trained even more about using this superpower. And I will see people telling me that they are good and their body language, good, says otherwise. I will watch people darting their eyes away from those who are trying so hard to connect. I think, I wonder what's going on there. And then I watch more and see whose eyes they are avoiding, and I know something's up. I find people who want to avoid telling me how they feel will make beelines around me, or they avoid picking up the phone even though I know they have it in their pocket and are not in a meeting. They text back instead. Little do they know, I read text fluently. I know what's going on. I know they are avoiding sharing their feelings. Sometimes in that avoiding sharing of feelings is when you say, I don't believe in gravity or nothing, right? It goes back to that like proclaiming, this is how it is. But if they said something about their feelings, we might learn a lot more and have an invitation for an exchange where we might get somewhere. I need to pause and come out about something to all of you. I avoided liking Brene Brown for years. I have this bias against liking anything that's popular. And then after her name kept coming up at seminary, and I kept avoiding her, I spent time going, oh my gosh, people I really admire like her. So I dove into the authenticity of her academic research and found that it was spot on and done with good standards. It held up to academic review. Fine. I was talking to my therapist one day and I shared that I had this bias and she said, me too. I learned then that my therapist goes through that same thing of not wanting to like something that's popular. And she also had that kind of arc with Brene Brown, that bias, right? And finally had to also admit that her research was well done. So today is like Brene Brown Day, with our whole service revolving around her latest book, Atlas of the Heart, Mapping Meaningful Connection and the Language of Human Experience. I didn't even want to read that book. I was like, are you kidding me? A whole book where she describes what a feelings word is? Boring. That's wrong. Brown believes that the ability to name feelings makes a huge difference in your ability to have a deeply fulfilling, heart-centered, accomplished life. No kidding. Most people can only say they are good, happy, or angry. Oddly, any of those three emotions can be expressed as, I'm okay, I'm fine, or I'm okay. Three emotions, that's it, just three. Good, happy, angry. That's what most people boil their whole lives down into. Again, research. Your orders of service came with feelings wheel today, and I want you to take a look at those as we go through the service and think about a couple of words. Like guilt or guilty, for example, tells people that they did something bad, while shame tells you that you are something bad. The difference between envy and jealousy is that envy materializes when one wants something somebody else has, whether it's looks or status or wealth or an experience. While jealousy is the feeling that a relationship is being threatened. Hopelessness is a fleeting fear that a task is too difficult. And despair is a feeling that life is too difficult. Part of being Unitarian Universalist is being able to hold complexity. So I will constantly be bringing you back to complexity and how to hold it. Now I'm gonna give you an exercise some other time when we meet, and it'll be really fun, but today I won't. Why learn more about different emotions? We'll do it when we have a tea with Reb D for some time. Because people will do anything to avoid discomfort, we have to learn about different emotions. It is easier to refer to how things should be, or what the bylaw is, or what the direction said, or how we used to do it, rather than just saying, I feel confused, I feel hurt, I don't know what's going on. Maybe if we stop talking to people, rather than admit we really care about something and are furious and we think they wrecked it, we go into what's called cutoff. I just won't talk to them anymore. I will only say hi. If we had to admit our feelings, we might actually come together. But to do that would be a risk. So to name your feelings takes, what's this month's theme? Courage. Brene Brown says, for children, it's easy for everything to become a source of shame when nothing is normalized. You assume if no one's talking about it, it must be just you. Now I, Reverend Denise Cawley, read that sentence and thought, did Brene Brown just get in my head? Because I have this bad habit of thinking that whenever I feel out of my power, when I am anxious or not centered, I think, must just be me. To get back into my power, I have to say, goodness, they have something going on there they're not saying. They are uncomfortable and are not sharing their feelings. This is not about me. This is about a person that does not want to articulate their feelings. But I go to that little girl that says, it must be me. I must have done something wrong. That's why they're acting that way. It's a child that goes to that. So if you go to that, this is your invitation to grow, to have courage. Brown continues, I understood that people would do almost anything to not feel pain, including causing pain and abusing power. And I understood that there were very few people who could handle being held accountable for causing hurt without rationalizing, blaming, cutting off, or shutting down. Yeah. Get out of my head, Brene. As a minister, I watch this happen to people who seek pastoral care, or even don't seek pastoral care. They join church committees and try to work out things. You see it at work too, right? They're trying to work out things without naming their feelings. They try to avoid sharing their feelings and instead go to that anger, that cutoff. They lose out on fun and great relationships. They lose out on having deeper humility, caring, and love. In our families, in our workplaces, in our world, we can see pain caused by the misuse of power. So we numb our pain and we lose track of our own power. We lose track of having that life force in us that could move to having deeper relationships. We become terrified of feeling pain. It doesn't matter what you numb with. You may be used to hearing that about drugs, but you can numb with shopping, with social media, with alcohol, sure, with drugs, with video games, with porn, and so much more. They are all results of behaviors that become a magnet for more pain. We run from anger and grief straight into the arms of fear, perfectionism, and a desperate need for control. For those of us on a journey to become more welcoming, more anti-racist, we learned that many of those words, perfectionism and using words that mean absolutes like best, fastest, quickest, and similar black and white words that mean that life cannot be seen as complex and multi-layered, but instead only seen as a contest where someone ends up on top and most of us suffer. Brown shares that when we stop numbing and we start feeling and learning again, we kind of have to reevaluate everything. Thanks a lot, Reb D. Thanks a lot. I come here to get inspired. I do not come here to work. When we stop numbing and start feeling and learning again, and we reevaluate everything, especially how we choose to love ourselves over making other people comfortable, right? I was having pastoral care with 2 people this week, and I heard that they had been working so hard to make other people comfortable that they made themselves miserable. It's the hardest work you will ever do. And it is worth it, my friends. It is so worth it to practice grace. I am born on Tuesday. Tuesday's child is full of grace. Did you ever hear that phrase? I had to go learn what it meant to be full of grace. Because grace means being courteous, means forgiving, means cutting some slack, means having goodwill toward others. It means, you often hear in our covenants, assume the best of intentions, right? It means extending compassion and love. In biblical references, to be full of grace means to be full of God. What would a God, in the sense of our all-loving God that our universalist ancestors believe in, what would they do? How would love proceed here? Could be up on your computer. How would love proceed here? That is what it means to be full of grace. It means to be filled up with God or love or benevolence. It is much easier to be filled up with love when the person you want to extend love to is stating their feelings rather than harsh directives, orders, or telling us how the world is or should be. If they say, "What a jerk, I can't believe they would buy coffee at the convenience store. The only good coffee comes from the fair trade organic place where they employ immigrants down the street. Well, it's actually across town, but they should have gone there. I can't believe they would do that and bring that to coffee hour." I'm not speaking to them, and I'm going to talk about them now at coffee hour when they are not around. You will see I use coffee as a Unitarian metaphor quite often. It's much different than saying, "I feel really sad that you brought conventional coffee to our meeting. I wonder what it means. I wonder if it means that you don't care about our earth. I am worried about our planet, and I feel afraid of what the world is coming to." What gosh, I care about our earth too, but I only had so much time, and I thought Unitarians would riot if I didn't have some coffee there. The first one is frightening. The first one happens, I can't tell you, if the meeting goes silent, if the event goes silent because someone just gave one of those directive, harsh statements, there's no invitation there. You have to be wildly courageous to interrupt that. Ouch! Ouch! Woo! Did you get your coffee? Can we try that again? Can I call you back into covenant? Because the second one offers a chance to be pastoral and caring. The second one offers an in. There was wonder in it and curiosity. I wonder if that means that you don't care about the earth. Now they have an opportunity to correct that, to share. This work that Brene Brown is sharing in this book is asking us to look at understanding our feelings in very complex ways in order to be a people of peace, curiosity, and kindness. It sure sounds like the covenant of this church. Running away from the pain and anxiety is much more risky than leaning in and figuring it out. It takes much more courage. I'm encouraging you to lean into courage by stating your feelings. State your opinions not like facts, but with feelings words. Well, I really think gravity is a good idea, and I feel pretty excited about gravity. How do you feel? Give yourselves permission to have messy conversations. You can say, goodness, I don't know what to say right now, but I feel uncomfortable. So often we think we have to have the perfect thing to say, the perfect right thing. Just state your feeling. Whew, I feel a little nervous right now. There's somewhere to go then. This is a map. I feel worried. I'm excited about this. I'm afraid. Some of us grew up in families where cutoff was really common. If they didn't like what you did, they would stop speaking to you. For years even. We sometimes see that in people who quit church. Rather than go directly to someone and express fears or even wonder and curiosity about what the person did, they just stopped going. They quit. And we Unitarian Universalists, we are lovers of leaving. You were not perfect. I'm out of here. It's how a lot of us got here, right? Brown goes on and says, I learned that when you hold someone accountable for hurtful behaviors and they feel shame, that's not the same as shaming someone. I am responsible for holding you accountable in a respectful and productive way. I'm not responsible for your emotional reaction to that accountability. Some of you may struggle with asking people to help. I'm not going to ask them because if I ask them, they might feel guilty. They might say no. That's not your problem. You can say, I have a great opportunity that I think would help you grow and deepen, and I'd love to have you join me on this because I think it'll make your life better. Is that something you're interested in? Do you have capacity for that? Could I break that down so that you could help? And if they say no, it's not about you. She says, I'm not responsible for your emotional reaction to that accountability. And sadly, I've learned that sometimes, even when the pain takes your breath away, you must Let people you love experience the consequences of their own behavior. And that one really hurts. Me speaking here, we are in a time of change in our faith and in our world and in this congregation. And last week I started to introduce you to the concept of liminal, that space in between. It is one where we might so desperately want to move on to what's next that we miss out on stopping and feeling. If we don't stop and figure out how we feel, we miss out on the learning. And if we skip that step, we just repeat it over and over. A few of you know I have a Bowen systems theory coach. And Bowen theory resources are usually applied in psychology to families, but there's a whole huge area of study that's been developed by congregational leaders that recognize how patterns we see in family structures are very similar to behaviors that are exhibited in congregations. Any group that works together a lot, you can see these same behaviors in. And one of the markers for a well-differentiated person is remaining non-anxious in difficult situations. And I'm just going to add that people who can remain non-anxious in difficult situations do a lot of spiritual practices, even pathetically. This instruction feels like a command to love thy neighbor, easy to say, hard to do. And being told to remain non-anxious sounds good, but can be difficult to manage depending on your feelings. But stating a feeling is a way to go to that next step when you don't know what to say. The path to bringing calm to any situation is to being able to name your feeling with greater precision. You want to get good at stuff? You want to play with that perfectionism? Fine. Learn the difference between all those different feelings on that wheel. If you can name and then share what you are feeling, others have a chance to react to that. If you hear someone angrily say, I think this meeting is a bunch of malarkey, I think you are being ridiculous and I think you should know better. The meeting will stop. The family gathering will end. The faces will all go. Everyone studies their shoes in that moment. There isn't much you can say after that to bring people back to love, can you? But if you heard someone in the same situation say, I feel really hurt. I am worried about doing a good job for everyone. I feel a lot of pressure to get it right. Now that you can react to, you can partner with. The first thing you can do is say, I'm so sorry you feel hurt, which does not mean that you made them feel hurt. You're acknowledging how they feel. I can imagine it's challenging to do good work when you are worried and feeling pressure. You're just going to repeat back to them what they said they feel. Leading with feelings changes everything, and Brown reminds us that very few people can handle being held accountable without rationalizing, blaming, or shutting down. Without understanding how our feelings, thoughts, and behaviors work together, it's almost impossible to find our way back to ourselves and to each other. And when we don't understand how our emotions shape our thoughts and decisions, we become disembodied from our own experiences. It's their fault, it happens to them, you're like not there. How many of us have heard people do that? Right? There's certain people, everything in the whole world is somebody else's fault. They had nothing to do with any of it. It all just happens. Humans are wildly complex. They are quilts of emotions and experiences, and having a better palette to describe our emotions means we have a portal to make meaning. We better can connect our feelings with words to describe them, and the more we are able to move productively throughout the world, the more grace we can demonstrate. Language is our portal to meaning making, to connection, to healing, to learning and self-awareness. So having a depth to draw from of accurate words to describe specific emotions makes us better able to identify those emotions in others, as well as to recognize and manage emotional experiences when we feel them. For the next family gathering or meeting you attend, you could walk around with your feelings wheel, cut it out, put it in your wallet, tape it to your desk, pass them out, download one to your phone. We've joked at my house that we're gonna get them tattooed on our arms. Right? This little tool is there for you to get through messy situations, and it could be a spiritual practice every day to put this inside your bathroom cabinet and name a feeling you are experiencing that day. And remember, in naming the feelings, you can experience that loving grace, that all-loving God feeling. And I realize for some of us, this is a learning edge. It's a new way to be, but you will not regret how that grace will feel. And with that, you can experience real love, gritty, dangerous, wild-eyed, justice-seeking love. Understanding those feelings brings grace and clarity, my friends. It is now time to collect our offertory, to take a breath. There are directions in your orders of service about how to give, and it's a ritual, I will remind you all the time. Even if you pledge to put money in, to share something, it makes you feel generous. It's amazing how you almost feel like you have more when you give more. So if you are a guest today, please let the basket, the bowl pass you by. Your gift is your presence here today. But for the rest of us, if you have the courage, share a little. Love, grace, and feelings. Everywhere we learn that love is important, and yet we are bombarded by its failure. In the realm of the political, among the religious, in our families, and in our romantic lives, we see little indication that love informs decisions, strengthens our understanding of community, or keeps us together. It is in offering our feelings that we have a chance to bridge that. And this bleak picture in no way alters the nature of longing. And that longing can be bridged by learning how to share your feelings more readily. And we still hope that love will prevail. We still believe in love's promise.